Well, let's get some more analysis. We can speak to Ian Reifowitz, who's a professor of history at Empire State College at the State University of New York, and also the author of Obama's America, a transformative vision of our national identity. Great to have you back with us here on France 24, Professor. Just talk us through what your predictions are for when we're going to know what.
Well, predictions, I'm happy to give predictions. Of course, they're a little more than guesses, but we do have some polling to go on. There have been four significant, reputable polls in the last few months, and they are showing that a decent percentage of voters who say they would vote for Trump would reconsider if he were convicted of a crime, specifically in this trial, or of a felony in general. The groups where we're seeing the most movement in particular are young voters who say they support Trump, and independents, who are so important because they are actually a large bloc who can swing back and forth between Democrats and Republicans. Now, could we be talking about Trump losing 5% of his voters, maybe 10% of his voters? Well, as your reporter said, in a close neck-and-neck election, that's more than enough to swing the verdict from a Trump return to the White House to a Biden re-election.
Yeah, but the fact that we're 6 months away from the election there in the US might mean that this is all sort of rather a distant memory by then, mightn't it? Especially if he's not convicted.
If he's not convicted, yes. If he's not convicted, I don't think it hurts Trump really at all. You've got people who are in the camp of Trump and who are getting their media from Trump-friendly sources, let's say. And I don't think that, if there's no conviction, then nothing about this trial is going to change their minds. But the question is, could there be something that can change the narrative, especially when we're talking about two people like Biden and Trump, who are so well known, who have been in the public eye for so long, and who have been at the front and center of the public eye for so long? I would argue, and again, the polling backs this up, that a conviction in a trial by jurors, regular Americans who looked at the evidence, who are not political people, is something that can break through the narrative. People haven't necessarily made up their minds yet. And this is the kind of thing I would argue that could shift a few percent of voters. And again, that's what polling shows. If you believe what people are saying, there is a possibility that this could have a small but important effect on the outcome. Think about Hillary Clinton in 2016. James Comey, the FBI director, came out not even with, this wasn't even a conviction. He came out with a statement a couple of weeks before the election. We're re-looking into the investigation of Hillary Clinton having done something wrong. Well, this is much more than, if you have a conviction, that's much more than looking into an investigation. It's a finding of guilt. I do think that could have an impact.
Okay, but just to be clear, Donald Trump being convicted in this trial would perhaps change voters' opinions, but it wouldn't change the fact that he's entitled to run for president once again in November. He could still run, couldn't he, even with a conviction?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Supreme Court has already said that he's on the ballot. Look, we had in the United States, we had a gentleman named Eugene V. Debs who ran for president, was on the ballot while he was serving a prison sentence. And he got about 6% of the popular vote, not enough to win, but he was on the ballot. And so Donald Trump absolutely could be on the ballot. He could be convicted. He could be imprisoned and still, in theory, win election. Would that happen? That remains to be seen.
It's been quite an eventful day in New York today. We had Robert De Niro talking to us here on France 24 a little earlier on, and obviously he's a staunch Trump critic. We also heard from Donald Trump, who described today, via his defense, as being a very dangerous day for America. What do you think he's getting at there?
Well, he's trying to make an argument that the justice system is somehow tilted against him. It's an interesting argument. Republicans have typically been associated with what they would, and Trump also would call, law and order, backing up the criminal justice system, backing up law enforcement. Well, now Mr. Trump is saying that because I'm the one on trial, something is rotten, something is corrupt. This is a dangerous thing, and it is unprecedented for a presidential candidate, for a former president, to basically say, listen, judges and juries, they don't really count in America if they're against me. So we have a segment of the population, not everybody who's voting for Trump, but a decent percentage of the people who, let's say, believe in Trump, who are going to have real problems with a guilty verdict and have real problems believing in our system of justice. That's a dangerous thing because it undermines the rule of law that's so essential for any democracy, any constitutional democracy, to function properly.
And just lastly, a reminder for all of us, this is one of a number of a number of legal woes that Donald Trump faces. But many would say this is the most significant. Why do people say that about this and not the other three?
Well, it's the most significant because it's the only one that's happening before the election. All right, he's under a total of 91 indictments. There are 34 in this case. So I'm a history professor, not a math professor, but that still leaves a good number of indictments. These other trials are less likely to run their course before the election. There is probably the most significant trial, the most dangerous one for him in Florida. There is a judge there, Aileen Cannon, who, at least by all appearances, seems to be helping Trump by delaying it at every step. She is a Trump appointee. That's the one that might be more likely than any other to result in conviction. If she can push it off until the election, I shouldn't say she, if it can be put off until the election and he wins, then the trial can go away because he can simply dismiss it. The New York one is a state trial, and a conviction in a state court cannot be pardoned even by a newly elected President Trump. The other ones are all federal trials.
Okay, well, thank you so much for helping us make sense of all of these legal wranglings and goings-on in the United States. Thank you so much. Professor Ian Reifowitz at Empire State College of the State University of New York.